Hello again and welcome to Arch Eats. My name is George Mahey.
I'm Cheryl Bear.
This episode of Arch Eats is supported by The Cup. And today we have a very special guest. We're going to be interviewing Nick Bognar, chef and owner of Indo, Sado, and the upcoming Pavilion, which is his new project, kind of part of Sado. One that everybody's going to want to hear about because it's, let's just say it's unique in town. It's something different. It's something very Nick Bognar, and it's very cool.
And speaking of something unique in town, we may have another surprise guest who is going to show us what we can't stop thinking about this week.
Yes, that is true. And we will end up, as we always do, with a micro rant, and we're going to be talking about condiment packets. Those little envelopes that you can never seem to get open.
And you need a chainsaw to get through them, which no one necessarily carries in their pocket.
Well, maybe not a chainsaw, but I bet Nick Bognar has a few knives in his pocket. Let's welcome our guest. So with us today is Chef Nick Bognar, who's no stranger to anybody that's dined in St. Louis for the last 10 years. Nick wanted to elevate the sushi experience in St. Louis, take it to a whole new level, and he's really done just that. First at his parents' former Japanese restaurant called Nippon Te, that was in West County. He earned a James Beard Award nod for Rising Star Chef of the Year. Then came his first restaurant called Indo in Botanical Heights, which garnered national attentions from publications like Esquire, Food and Wine, and GQ. And then came his equally regarded effort, Sado, which won a James Beard Award nom for Best New Restaurant, which was a national category. Let's just stop right there. A belated congrats on that James Beard nod, Chef, and welcome to Arch Eats.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I know you smiled all the way through that.
Yeah,
That was
I love hearing it.
that was great. So let's just start with Sado. Sado is by all definitions, a runaway hit, but we're here today to talk about part two, which is phase two, an experience called Pavilion. And for listeners who might not be aware of the project, let's just start at the beginning. Was Pavilion part of the original plan at Sado, or was that something that came later?
Yeah. So if you remember back at Indo, we did a tasting menu there at the sushi bar, and we used to do it 3 or 4 nights a week. And that was a totally different menu from what we served the rest of the restaurant. And we stopped doing that around COVID time, as well as when we had our patio expanded, just because we couldn't execute the same thing anymore.
And that was the traditional omakase.
Yeah, we would call it
experience.
omakase kind of loosely, as almost nowadays I like to call it a tasting menu more now, just to keep myself out of like a box of what you would get at a Japanese omakase. But for me, we've always wanted to bring that tasting menu back. And we've done it in a few different ways since COVID and reopening. But the main thing for me was to try.
All right,
we have a visitor
we've
now.
got a guest in the house.
I was just getting comfy.
We've got
I know this guy.
We've got a barge in.
It's good to meet him in real life.
Chris Bertkey just walked in.
Nice to meet you.
I knew you were coming, but I didn't know you were coming like right now. But welcome aboard. Chris is here to drop off a vegan hot dog, which he's extremely proud of. I've tasted it.
I saw this on Instagram.
It's quite good.
I did too. I'm very excited.
stoked.
Real quickly, let's just do it.
Do I get to unwrap this?
Vegan hot dogs, created them the other day. It's like 5 or 6 ingredients, konjac powder, pea protein, and like some herbs, spices, whatever. I'm doing it tomorrow at the deli for a special, see what happens, and then maybe we'll put them on the menu. But
Well,
yeah, super simple. That's kind of the Chicago minus the pickle because the box was too small.
I have to ask, didn't you say this was like revealed to you in a dream?
I love
yeah.
I was dreaming about wieners.
That's
Only in the
That's so
bizarre,
sick.
deranged mind of Chris Bertkey does that happen. I've had some vegan hot dogs. Most of them are not edible. This one is quite good. I wanted you to taste it. And since Nick is here,
You guys take a quick bite, then I'm going to get out of here, let you guys be on your way.
I like this guy.
All right. Well, we're going to see.
Thanks,
how
man.
should we do this? Should we
It's
like
a hot dog,
just-
Shirley. Just
This is Chicago dog style. We've
Let's-
got poppy seed bun. We have diced white onion. We have the peppers. We've got a tomato on there. We definitely do not have ketchup. So, because we are not criminals. And I'm going in. Are you going in?
I was
All
I
right.
was ready
Here we go.
like 5 minutes ago.
So you're the originator of
bro.
Chris, lobster rolls that don't have lobster in them, crack tacos that don't have crack or taco meat in them.
That's great.
Chris, this is great. You really get that flavor. The flavor is what's nuts. I don't know what kind of like magic or like alchemy or
magic.
whatever you're doing.
It's really good. It's really, really good.
Keep up the wacky work, my friend. You
Well
do
done.
it better than anybody.
Nice. Yeah, nice to meet
Now,
you.
now we got a podcast to record.
Thanks, man. I'll see you around. Yeah, yeah.
See you, brother.
What a lovely surprise. I will always do podcasts if you give me free
See,
hot dogs.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
just hot dogs at every podcast. We
Even
could,
vegan
Yeah,
ones.
do
we
that.
could
You
do it.
do?
We could afford it.
It
too.
doesn't taste vegan at all. I don't know what. I don't know if I've had one, but I mean that was good.
They're not very good, and he knew it. And he,
Yeah.
his goal was to create something different. Anyway,
Amazing.
Thank you, Chris. We'll be right back.
As Missouri's first gourmet cupcake bakery, The Cup has been baking for St. Louisans for 17 years. Rediscover your sweet tooth by visiting The Cup's flagship location in the Central West End, or check out the recently remodeled bakery in Edwardsville. And don't miss out on the gooey butter cake. Stop by or order online at cravethecup.com. And now, back to the show.
Back to Pavilion. Do you remember? That's what we were talking
Yeah, I
about before we
remember.
were so pleasantly interrupted. Let's kind of start at the beginning, really at the entrance. Let's talk about the atmosphere first. I think originally you were going to have a separate entrance. Did that come about?
We had talked about the way the entrance would be. And actually, we always wanted to get back to this tasting menu. We always wanted to offer it somehow. So you'll actually walk through Sato to get to Pavilion, and it has its own little garden area. So you'll probably walk through the garden. And then the other idea we thought might be cool, if it's raining and stuff, we'll probably take you through the kitchen, and you'll get to see what's going on back there as you walk into the
that's
Pavilion area too.
You know
so
what?
that'd be fun.
People love that.
Yeah, so it's almost like, you're going to see the restaurant, and then you're going to go to a new area.
Makes you feel like VIP for sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea, a little extra experience.
Well, and that's kind of one thing that I was curious about with this. Do you want people to think of this as its own concept? Do you want them to think of it as a complementary concept to Sato? Kind of, how do you want people to think about it?
I would really like people to think of it as a separate concept, because we're
Mhm.
not going to be able to do the things in Pavilion at Sato. Sato
Yeah.
being a pretty large restaurant, especially for us. So with that many seats, we can't do some things that we want to do all the
Mhm.
time. We have great ideas, and we have dishes all the time that we want to do one way. And we take little, concessions here and there. And I'm hoping that with Pavilion, we can open up back that idea of like, nothing's too hard. Creativity is kind of the primary goal for the whole menu, and
Sure.
also an entire tasting of things that aren't available at either other location too. So really special, I think, is the idea.
And it looks completely different than Sato.
Oh, yeah.
As,
Yeah.
as my
Mhm.
friend John Carney would say, walk us through the place. When we walk through the doors to Pavilion, what do we see?
You'll be going through the main dining room, and then you'll walk past, actually, you'll probably walk past a server station as well too. So a little behind the scenes action. And
I
I'm
love it.
certainly the servers will, be kind of stoked for you and say, have fun in there. And then we have a cool little stone garden with these really great, our carpenters have made this wonderful kind of walkway that's covered, and it has this awesome old school Japanese architecture, where I think Sato's a
that
lot
sounds
more
gorgeous.
modern. We kind of go back to more wood, and, the idea of like this old school sushi bar made out of wood in that entire room. But the window for Pavilion is floor to ceiling. And it's got this cool slanted roof as well. And then when you go in, it's all wood, just like a little less modern, a little bit more old school wood finish things. And then you have hopefully a really comfy seat, not as much wood stuff. And I
Mhm.
just love that kind of softness that it has, and almost the smell you have in there as well too. So it's pretty cool. And then you see the whole thing from inside the dining room. You can see the dining room as well,
How many seats?
which is interesting.
Inside.
So the sushi bar has 6 seats, very small, very, very small. The idea is that it would probably be me cooking and maybe an assist or something like that. But really, it's just perfect little bites from
But
me.
there's a sushi bar, but there's another table in there, according
Right.
to the
So
rendering.
there is a table, and the idea behind that, it would probably be either or. So,
I see.
so
I
the
didn't-
table's really more for people who would like to do a tasting menu or rent out a larger table from us, depending on when we are open doing the ticketed dinner. Because it does just get a little tight in there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an either or situation with that.
Is it talk about the lighting, talk about the music, just talk about the vibe?
Well,
Is
yeah,
it,
music
loud
is-
music, soft music?
I'm guessing music's up to me, so everybody's probably gonna be mad it's too loud.
You can't be there all the time, or can you? What are the hours going to be over there? What are the days?
So I know we're gonna start slowly as to get the tasting menu going, which is kind of the priority for the place. So as we say, the tasting menu or the omakase, that's the sushi bar, right? So 6 guests, tickets, me cooking. And then I would say the idea would be to expand the hours with me hopefully supervising any one of my main sushi chefs and being able to provide the tasting menu for more days, you know.
And this would this be one tasting menu per night?
I think we're going to do two seatings.
Okay.
I think we can do 2 seatings. That's usually not a problem.
So you talk about this whole experience, and we talked about omakase. It's a multi-course tasting
Right.
menu.
Right. So the Japanese kind of omakase for a chef would be a tasting of different nigiri, usually sushi, very sushi forward. And it usually goes for, you know, anywhere between 18, you know, to 50 courses or single bites. And I guess the idea mainly is that you're not really choosing anything. You're eating what gets put in front of you and you're trusting that chef to do what's best for you. And the idea is just go in with an open mind, and then what ends up happening is through the rules of sushi and technique and that chef, it becomes very personal to that person. And I think that's probably the coolest part about it.
What if the guest says, we only want 6 courses, or we only want 12?
You know, we've
we
run
only want
into a
30.
lot. We've run into a lot of that. I've never really, I don't know if I've ever solved that problem. I just kind of keep going. And, you know, it isn't necessarily impolite to skip a dish or two if you're getting full or something like that too. So you just kind of put your hand up and say no. And we can
Oh,
move on.
okay.
Yeah, we can
See,
move
I
on.
didn't know what the etiquette of it.
So if you're sitting there and I'm trying to put a dish in front of you, you can, you can just say, no, I'm good on this one. And then I'll just give it to the next person.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, okay.
yeah.
And it's not considered like insulting.
I don't think
or
so.
Rude or
No.
anything.
Let's give us a sample. I know it's not all nigiri. There's a lot of other things that you do that some of them aren't even fish related. Correct?
Yeah. Even with sushi in general, like a lot of people think it's always raw fish. But my idea of it really has to do more with the rice, you know, that perfect bite. So if, you know, it's like 18 perfect bites, you know, that's a really great meal, in my opinion. So for me, it can be anything. You know, we do really well with vegetable stuff at the restaurant. I think some of those are like some of the best bites ever. Like, you know, slow cooked shiitake mushroom nigiri is like one of my favorite things we serve still. Or
Some of your vegetable tempuras on there
Oh,
are
yeah.
like, oh my, I
Yeah.
had like a sweet potato one. I think.
yeah,
It
well,
was-
yeah, we did sweet potatoes, we do acorn squash, like stuff
Yes.
like that. I mean, it's super good tempura style.
Fantastic.
A lot of places are going to be doing nigiri, which is that perfect piece of fish over rice. You know, you're supposed to eat in one bite. Then also little sashimis as well, or like little slices of like a cold tasting or, you know, crudo-esque dishes. So you're going to see all kinds of that stuff from me. I'm going to bring the grill into it as well. So we grill things with binchotan, which is that Japanese charcoal.
Super high
It's
temp.
Yeah, exactly. We have a nice section of that at the Sato menu as well. But there's certain fish that, you know, you almost never grill and put on a menu because it's, you know, very expensive or it's not high yielding enough to be cooked. And there's things that are pretty incredible that we've tried and we've always wanted to do. So I'd love to get some of that stuff involved with the tasting at Pavilion as well. So perfectly grilled, dry aged fish is, you know, for me, one of
Yeah.
the most amazing things. to
Talk
eat.
about that. Dry aged fish was not a thing that was familiar to most St. Louisans, even a lot of Japanese restaurant goers. And you I won't say you popularized it, but you kind of did. It kind of became a thing at Sato.
I talk about this all the time now, actually, because it's kind of sweeping everywhere in dining, I would say. And it's kind of hitting more Western restaurants, especially on the higher end, because they're starting to see that quality of fish when it is aged, how much better it cooks, how much better it tastes. Texturally, it's so much better. And I always try to start with people, it's like dry aged beef, right? So as things age, those protein walls break down. They're more tender, they're more dense with fat and flavor. And it's really just like a subtle change on the cellular level. So what we do, it stems from storage, you know, it stems from like this old Japanese technique of storing fish, keeping the fillets from degrading,
Mhm.
keeping them as whole as you can without going bad, like gills and bloodlines and the eyes and all this different stuff. So you're cleaning the fish really well. You're storing it at a really close to cold, like almost as freezing temperature without freezing it. and allowing it to lose a little bit of water content and age a little bit so that it's just that much better.
Concentrates
Yeah,
the flavor.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
So
that's
when
it,
we
yeah.
say aged for how long? Because a steak you can age for forever.
Yeah. And you could age something for a really long time.
I find that hard to believe.
Fascinating.
Isn't that crazy?
Without it kind of going down.
Yeah. So if
exactly.
you have a nice piece of tuna, right, you can age that for, I have friends doing it for 60 days.
Wow.
There's people doing it, I saw it on a menu, not even a Japanese menu not that long ago. And it was like tuna ham, 120-day aged tuna thing in Spain or whatever.
Fascinating. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, we're doing a lot less because mainly the volume loss can be very high. So then what you're able to use gets so much smaller, right? And then there's a certain profitability there. And then also the people's understanding of what, why that costs so much. So we'll do certain small snapper fish for just a 24-hour period. And it makes a huge difference, actually.
So even 24
24
you don't
hours.
have to go for like
No,
a
you do
month.
not at all. Yeah, not at
Okay.
all. So I would say we always carry sea bream or Japanese sea bream madai. It's a lot like a red snapper, right? We always are going to hang that out for at least a day. And then that fish will just be so much better that way. And it's a
Wow.
textural difference mainly. I always like to talk about mouthfeel with
Yeah.
sushi because you're going to have sushi sometimes that feels maybe like waterlogged or it's mushy while you're eating it, which makes it not pleasant, especially when it mixes with the rice.
Sure.
And just a little bit of aging with that fat and that density change, it becomes pleasant to eat with rice. You're talking about like a buttery rice kind of flavor thing going on,
Just
right?
makes it more like luscious.
Yeah,
or
and you're
something.
enjoying it as you're eating it, and it's like tender, and it's like, it's just better, man.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, anywhere from between 24 hours and I think the longest thing we're doing right now probably about a week.
Okay.
Which would be like our bluefin tuna or a bigger fish, ocean trout or salmon. All the salmon gets dry aged for about 4 or 5 days. We use a lot of salmon. It's very popular.
Yeah, that's what I wanted
Yeah.
to talk about. You think about omakase experiences and sushi experiences, tuna, salmon, there's certain snappers, certain kind of standbys, but you're talking about sea bream and some other things like that. What are some other fish that you're turning St. Louisans onto that they may never even have heard about?
Yeah, we've been doing really well. So right now we're in kind of the middle of summer and you're going to get these lovely silver skinned fish. So silver skinned fish is kind of like mackerel, horse mackerel, Spanish mackerel. So you have all these sardines is another good one.
I guess this is going back into your mom's place, but what were some of the things that were like impossible for her to find back then that now we just take for
crazy
granted
enough.
are
Yeah.
accessible?
So yeah, when we first got sea bream on the menu, we would get it, but it would be like once a week, maybe.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And now it's like, I can get all the sea bream I need, all the
Wow.
madai I need, right? So little things like that. And then my mom would talk to her reps and stuff, and we'd do specials over the weekend. We'd try to sell out of it. Now, there would be no way for me to get something that I love to have, kinmidai, which is a golden eye snapper.
Okay.
Beautiful. Sometimes they call it splendid Alfonsino. There's a ton of names for it, actually. Every fish has like multiple names, which is cool. But that was never on the table until some of these companies started, noticing that people would buy it. And I kind of contacted some friends or whatever, and they were like, hey, do this too. And yeah.
I love it. I would try something called Splendid Alfonsino.
I think you've had it, George. I'm pretty sure.
That sounds really
You gotta write this stuff down. When
No,
you
it just sounds like so much fun.
It's really good.
When we're at this omakase experience, what are we drinking? What are you suggesting? Is that part of the deal, or is that all extra?
So, something that's actually really controversial is what you drink with omakase. We're probably going to just bend the rules a little bit. We're probably going to serve some funky wine. I'm a huge fan of drinking like interesting wines with these types of pairings because I've seen it work for me. And, I don't know, but a lot of people would just be very true to like the authenticity and say like you should only drink something very clean, like a sake or like a cleanser or something like that. So you can like really pay attention to the fish.
Yeah.
I just think that there's more to that. And it's really just an opinion of mine that some really interesting, especially like natural wines and white wines, as well as sake too. But I like it all, So like we're going to try to curate something that's interesting and not necessarily just like crazy expensive sake,
It could get crazy.
Some of it, yeah.
One thing that I am curious about is, you talked about there's a very traditional, old school, like this is how you do it way. And then there's the kind of, well, maybe we don't have to play by those rules. I guess you seem to tend toward that let's maybe kind of take some liberty. Like, do you think there's like a tension between those things there?
You know,
or-
not for me. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm not a big rule follower.
No.
You've got to be kidding me.
I think Maverick is his middle name.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
sure.
I've had a lot of great dinners. Some people that were mentors to me back in the day as well, doing really well. And they're not just doing what is expected from this style
Sure.
of dinner, right? And it's okay to kind of play around with things, I think. So if I'm charging $500 per person, like I should probably have tuna from the tuna guy in Toyosu Market serving like the absolute best thing, right?
Mhm.
I see a lot of these direct lines to Japan as a next step for me one day here,
Mhm.
and I would like to start doing some of that stuff. But I think what we have is, what it costs and all that stuff plays into how I charge. And then, maybe a little more liberty to do things that are fun and whimsical as well as delicious.
Mhm.
And it's just always about balancing that value or that perception of value for me too, because yes, things can be super fun and whimsical, but they also have to be correct.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And like I try to really hit
Yeah,
that
you're
hard.
a technician
Yeah.
as well as a creator,
Yeah.
as well as a people pleaser. You got to wear a lot of hats.
So something's like, okay, maybe I'll serve it very clean, Japanese style, and just try to make sure that I'm doing that justice, right? This fish has been aged correctly. It's been cut very correctly.
Mhm.
And it's been seasoned, and you get the fish, and it makes sense to any person, especially another Japanese sushi chef or something like that. And it's just, delicious too.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be things that I think on this menu, especially any one of my menus, where me as a person, my experiences, especially my family's food too, a lot of that Thai heritage, and just kind of trying to weave that through where, one bite's like, well, that's really interesting and fun. And then the other stuff is like, I've had that before and I get to experience that again. And it's just as good as someplace, maybe
Mhm.
they've had in New York or something like that too.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the elephants in the room is price. I know you've probably put a price tag on this. Are you comfortable telling us what that might be? People have to know that before they walk in the door.
yeah, I've actually juggled around a lot of ideas towards the price tag. And I think to be hopefully uninhibited by the ingredient quality and stuff, and just the ability to source some things that actually are from, like these crazy places, like, all over the place. I'm looking at like around 250 per person,
Right.
including the gratuity and tax.
Right. And if you back the gratuity and tax out of that,
Mhm.
it sounds a little more reasonable.
Yeah. I also think that we can make it extremely worth it. That's also always one of my goals. And also, it might be fun to play with different priced menus as
I was
well.
going to say, if the guest wants something super
Yeah.
exotic
Yeah.
or super simple,
Right, exactly.
you can tailor it to them. I mean, that's what this thing is,
Yeah.
right?
So with Pavilion, I think, we're going to just go all gas, try to hit it, make sure we get all the best things so that people can experience that. And a lot of that stuff trickles down to Sato. So that's pretty great too.
You said in print a while back that this was your most ambitious project to date.
So the way that I think of this is that I can't just go back to 2019 Indo and just do another of those tastings that we were doing. I mean, it's been 5 years since we opened Indo. Like all this stuff has happened. It's crazy. I'm a totally different person. So I want to go back into the kitchen where I have this tasting menu, and that's the template again, and really just pour myself over what my like expression through food is again in a totally new way, and just really hopefully bring back that feeling that people are just like, oh, this is mind-blowing kind of feeling. And I think we did do it pretty well at Indo, and I just, I think I have the capability of doing it better than I did when I was 28 or whatever.
That seems to me like that's kind of like where your joy in all of this lies, is really in that having this sort of creative expression that you get to share with people.
I really do enjoy the act of cooking a lot. Like I've always liked that. I mean, I sincerely believe that there's no way that I could have opened this other restaurant or whatever without like actually enjoying like a day in the restaurant, cooking, especially. That experience at a sushi bar kind of adds to that, because it's always fun when you can like get to know someone and then like cook for them. And then maybe even just off the cuff, cook something for this person now that you know a little bit more about what they enjoy. And there's a word for it, but it's like a moment in time that happens, and it's kind of unrepeatable, right?
Yeah.
So if I know that you enjoy things that are like fatty, or something just like,
Right,
oh, she really
right.
loved that last bite.
hmm
Then it's like, oh, she'll love this.
Wait till you try this.
Yeah. And then you learn about someone and then you just do that. And it's like a moment, and you can't, it's never exactly the same. And I guess that's kind of where we get to with Pavilion too, because it's not going to be Indo. It's not going to be 2019 Indo, but it will be awesome, I guess, hopefully.
Talk to us about that a little bit. Like, how would you say this kind of differs from maybe that experience with Indo there that people have? Like, how would you say, because it seems like a lot of these restaurants are really kind of a manifestation of like kind of you as a chef and, your kind of culinary journey. Talk about like what Indo represents, what Sato represents, what Pavilion represents.
Yeah. So when we first opened Indo, it was like we still had Nippon-te.
hmm
And that was, Nippon-te is my mother's restaurant
Yes.
too. And we did change things, but inherently it had to stay like mostly what she created, right? Otherwise there was just, and even the changes we did make, that stuff caused a lot of drama
a
too.
lot of angst.
Yeah, but when we did Indo, we have this thing where we like to pack a lot of ideas into one spot, and with what we have too. And we're a family business, so we can't do everything that exactly perfect sometimes. So, I love making nigiri, I love making sushi, and nigiri is a craft that I just constantly work on, right? And I'm still, in my opinion, getting better every day. So, that early Indo was like Nick's expression. Exactly. Because it's a small restaurant. It was like the same people working together every day. And it was like just what we're doing today with what I decided kind of, which is kind of crazy to do for as long as we did. Now I feel like Indo represents kind of this side of me that is important to my food or our food as a team as well, which is a lot of the leaders in the kitchen, especially. And we are leaning towards this wonderful, like my Thai family heritage, the food of a lot of the chefs, so a lot of Southeast Asia or just Asia across the board with not a lot of rules in general. We also made surprise and creativity part of that menu too. So it's like we always want to surprise you with the menu somehow, even if it's not everything. And there's certain things that will probably always be on the menu. But if you get a dish and you're just pleasantly surprised each time you go, something new, that's part of like our lifeblood at that restaurant. And then seafood still weaves through the menu, but it kind of comes out in a different way now, right? So it's like we still want to blow your mind with all the different seafood offerings, but we wanted to separate, that nigiri sushi bar and make that Sato's kind of identity,
Sure.
right? And almost in a way where it made more sense for a lot of different reasons. Restaurants aren't just the chef, it's also the equipment and the size and like how much seafood we need to cut in the morning and all this type of stuff. So Sato allowed us to do this kind of awesome encompassing sushi bar that almost offers every person's idea of what sushi is, hopefully. And it's a bigger restaurant. You can get in there and you can have California rolls and you can have
that's what
uni, like you can have uni from the market in Japan,
And that's what I like. You can have really exotic dishes and you can have edamame and a crab rangoon and a California roll.
People really do need to remember that too, because like I think we get boxed into a place that is like only special occasion, but we do have a great group of guests that I see a lot on like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. And we even do a little like a fun social hour thing. So you can taste little bites of things without having to commit to a more expensive dish. You come in and get like a roll and a steam bun and a good gyoza, and then maybe one Toro, not 9 or whatever. And I just think it's like a nice little quick meal too, and we have a walk-in section. So that's something that I like to kind of just bring out.
That's almost a happy hour.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I think,
And those hours are what? Because that exists.
So we call it social hour. It's 5 to 6, Tuesday through Thursday. Yeah. And it's just like fun bites that we change around all the time too.
Great way to
Poke
sample.
nachos.
Oh, that's
I was in Hawaii
wonderful.
and I love these poke nachos that I found everywhere. And it's like, we can make this. Like, I mean, we have really great tuna. We have really great stuff. So we made our own version. But it's like less serious, right?
Yeah.
But Sato for me was always, let's do an amazing sushi bar. And a lot of people have different ideas of what sushi is. It's not exactly authentic either. And there are Thai things on the menu as well. But for me, it's like, if you just want to have sushi, Sato should have it for you. Right?
Sure.
It's authentic Nick Bognar.
For sure. Yeah. If you want to say it's like Nick serves authentic sushi, I'm completely losing that argument every time.
Exactly.
And it's fine. If you like my stuff, then that's cool too. And I also really want to get away from people just like, I go to this sushi restaurant, I go to this sushi restaurant, and they like fight each other on it. It's about that chef like that day.
Yeah.
It's not even about who's like winning or losing. It's, like if all this has to do with expression, I'm going to enjoy a meal at most sushi bars, you know?
You can like multiple bands.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
You can love jazz and love, Miles Davis and Coltrane.
Yeah.
One thing that I think so interesting about this, St. Louis diners have really kind of embraced this here. But in a way, you're kind of trusting St. Louis diners to support this. It's just traditional stereotype of, oh, Midwestern diners aren't going to pay this much for fish and they're not going to be into it. So I think that's interesting. I'm just kind of wondering what it's been like.
I mean, I've always said that if you just kind of let go of that idea that, oh, the diners in St. Louis aren't going to eat this, then you're going to do just fine.
Sure.
Because it's really just about being passionate about something and like believing in something. And I believed in Indo. I believed in my mom's restaurant,
Sure.
and I moved back to St. Louis and I went to work and I stood in the same place in that restaurant when I was 15 years old as like the little kid who was helping out my mom. And I was standing in the same spot.
Rolling the crab ring game.
Right. And I had worked at Chico or whatever. And I was like, but like mentally I was like, okay, like I think that people are going to enjoy what's good and we have to like believe in it. And it was really hard, sure. But at some point, that mentality got people eating. And then that's exactly Indo. Like if I was kind of trying to hold back at that place, I don't think we would have done anything like that made people like excited about it or even just, oh, this is like really special. I think most people think Indo is a very special restaurant, especially me, right? And it's because it has that identity that's unique, not just for St. Louis, right? So the idea to me of saying like, oh, like you can't do this in St. Louis, maybe falls more under like a business category. Like you can't open something that costs $1,000 a head, maybe. That being said, if you're like a chef and you believe in that, like I honestly think we probably would go, I'm certain I would.
Yeah.
If it was something that made sense to me or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think you just got to do what you believe in and like people see that. And the support that St. Louis has for like my spots is like incredible. I would have never believed that this is what I'd be doing like right now.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool too.
Did you have like this? I mean, no one ever has like a plan, but here you come back, you're standing in the same spot in your mom's restaurant. Could you have ever imagined you're getting ready to open Pavilion?
No, I don't think so. I think we thought we were going to open Indo. I was going to like work there forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I was like, I think if we had like a Nippon Tay in the city, like the diners would love it, and it's totally true. And it's kind of, it's not like we got too far away from what we were doing there. Like you said, we still do like the crab rangoon, and it's like.
And you do it on the hill. That's what cracked me up. And not only did you do another restaurant, but you decided to go to the hill.
I always thought that was going to work perfect. Everybody, a lot of people said that, oh, this might not work here on the hill with the Italian neighborhood. But I was like, I just see it as like, this is where I go to dinner, man. I always loved going to the hill to dinner.
And
I still go.
And you're bringing a lot more people to the hill for dinner because of Sato. That's Nick Bognar. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you, guys.
If people didn't have an appreciation for you before, they certainly do now. And I hope that everybody gets out to Indo, gets out to Sato, and certainly checks out Pavilion.
It's going to be great.
Because that's where we'll find you in the next coming months.
Yeah. And also, Pavilion, we'll definitely put it up on Instagram. That'll probably be the first spot we announce any like tickets or anything like that. So
we're thinking early fall. How general can we?
We're close. We're super close. We're super close.
We're speaking in
early fall. That sounds good.
We're speaking in mid-August, so we're talking early fall. So you got another month to think about things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Our thanks to Chef Nick Bognar, and this is no reflection on Chef Bognar, but our micro rant today has to do with condiment packets. Those plastic or foil, impossible to open little envelopes.
There's supposed to be a tab. There's never a tab. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, look for the tear here notch. There's never a tear here notch. Packets without slits mean having to saw open the pack with your teeth.
Or I've oftentimes actually had to take the plastic to-go knife and try and saw it open with that. And it usually doesn't end well for myself or my clothing.
You can't be expected to pack a medical-grade scissors every time you go out to a restaurant. I can't believe that somebody can't invent one of these that makes a little more sense and is a lot more user-friendly.
I'm a big fan of those like
do
ketchup dippers, where you just peel back the foil. It's very dignified.
they have to kind of get to that with these ketchups and mustards and sweet and sours. Let's invent that, you and me.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
That's today's micro rant, and now Cheryl and I have something to do in our spare time. We're going to invent this thing.
I love it.
That's it for this week. Be sure to follow us and share with your friends. And we always provide links in the show notes for everything you heard about today. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow along on Instagram at St. Louis Mag. And feel free to give us a follow personally at George Mahey and Cheryl A. Bear.
If you loved what you heard, show us some love by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And if you're hungry for even more content, you can subscribe to our dining newsletters for the freshest coverage on the local restaurant and culinary scene.
Best dishes, and see you next time.